Everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today for this workshop on a topic supporting international undergraduates' well-being in today's university. So when I say we, I mean Dr. Adriana Helbig, the Associate Dean of District School and College of General Studies, and also my name is Duraskovic. I'm an Assistant Dean at the District School and the College of General Studies. So thank you again for coming here. So I think that this topic is really very interesting for all of us because we all teach in international students, or we were international students in the school. So let's see what is happening today. For this conversation, we also had a consultation with the Office of International Services at the University of Pittsburgh. And I don't see at this moment who is present, but I do have information that somebody from the Office of International Services will be present. So I hope they're here. I really don't see who is here. So I will start first with some info about the Office of International Services that we have at the University of Pittsburgh. And the Office of International Services at Pitt is serving all campuses and around 6,000 international students, scholars, staff, and faculty. So people from Office of International Services, if you're here, please feel free to jump in and say if there is something that you might find important.
Liana, Richard Sherman is here.
Yes, yeah, Richard is here. So thank you, Richard, for coming. I did receive an email from Richard, so thank you for coming. And please feel free to jump in and say if there is something that I miss here, or you find it very interesting for all of us to hear. So I have information that the University of Pittsburgh welcomed 154 new international undergraduate students this fall, which is this fall to 2025 term. We have, in general, the total of 800 international undergraduate students at Pitt this year. Last year, we had about 920 international undergraduate students. I also have the photo of kind of information that I downloaded from the Office of International Services website. So 2023-2024, there were bachelor's students 961. Then a year before that, we had bachelor students 913, which in general, we would say it's a little bit of drop of the international students at the University of Pittsburgh, but I do believe that Adriana maybe can just talk a little bit about that and about other stuff that comes with that. So I also would like to say how we support our new international students, actually how the Office of International Services supports them. And you can see that I circle something that is very important for them on their website. It's new to Pitt outreach and resources for the international students. Last year, or well, actually it was not last year, last spring, when I had this workshop, there were some other information, but I'm really very happy to report that there is a new course for undergraduate students, international undergraduate students at the University of Pittsburgh. And this is completely new for this fall. And I was waiting for this because they told me that the course will come up. And this is the introduction to US and Pitt culture. And the class topics include US classroom culture, group work and presentation skills, benefits of engagement. And you can see cross-cultural communication, employment options, additional benefits, etc. All those important topics that really our international students need to know. And I'm very happy that Kati or Katie is teaching this course this year, and it's very, very useful for our international students. But for our international students, for all of us, it's very important, since we are teaching international students, it's very important to know that our students need to maintain their status. So I'm just giving you some info about this. It's the student always need to consult the advisor from Office of International Services, but we as instructors need to know that the international student must be enrolled full-time during fall and spring terms. Full-time is defined. I do have also graduate students and I have undergraduate students. Undergraduate students, they need to have 12 credits, and graduate students 9 credits as or full-time dissertation study. So that means the student must remain enrolled on a full-time basis during the entire term. So if you are suggesting to your student to drop the course or withdraw the course, if they are enrolled just in 12 credit hours, they can't do it, but if there is any suggestion for that drop or withdrawal, they should go and see the Office of International Services Advisor, and also for any other changes, changing the primary major, changing the degree level, they have to see Office of International the advisor. So please, if you have an international student, send them to Office of International Services to talk before you decide with the student to do even withdrawal or the drop of the courses. It's very important for their status, and usually their I-20, which is the most important form for international students, needs to be changed. So the Office of International Services at the University of Pittsburgh do not just support our students, they support our faculty. So they are trying to help them, to works with them, not to meet only immigration compliance for our international visitors, but also to help build connections and provide support to everyone in our international and campus community. There is also a global competence certificate program that faculty can complete at the University of Pittsburgh and learn more about international students and how to teach them. University Center for Teaching and Learning, also they offer a workshop on supporting international students as part of the Achievement in Pedagogy Badge program, and the instructors could request individualized support via consultation with them. So I was thinking a lot what would be just the most important challenges that I should include in this workshop for our international students. And I decided that kind of divide them in 3 groups, which is the first one comes, as you probably all supposed to, is the language barriers and the communication style. Then we have academic, cultural, and social challenges. And the third group would be adjusting to different teaching and learning expectations. So when it comes to language barriers and communication styles, I think it's very important to know that the international students have difficulty understanding fast-paced lectures or different accents. They have anxiety about speaking in class, sometimes, not all of them, of course, due to accent or fear of making mistakes. And there is a certain hesitation in seeking help from professors due to language limitations. I also would like to say that international students, more and more, when they're coming to American universities, they speak English better because English is the part of their life everywhere now. But there are students, they still, even if they pass the TOEFL test, sometimes are having problems in the class because of the way how the professors talk, of the maybe the accent, maybe the topic they're covering there. So they still have some problems, especially if they're coming in their first semester. So when it comes to difficulty understanding fast-paced lectures, even I just like this thinking that sometimes the students nod at us, but it is possible that students actually do not understand, because in some cultures, asking questions is not polite and it's not appropriate, and it's not good actually to ask the question. And sometimes idioms and slang cause some confusions for students. For example, I took this one because I still have no clue what this means. If the professor says, give me the ballpark figure, many countries do not play baseball and they don't know what the ballpark is. I, again, am saying I still don't know what that means. So I need to talk to someone and ask actually specifically about this one. And there is also another thing for all of us, and especially for our international undergraduate students, is that native English speakers might not understand some international students whose native language patterns are so ingrained that they carry over into their English. So sometimes we do have a problem to understand students when they speak. When it comes to academic, cultural, and social challenges, they usually include different grading systems and academic integrity policies and class participation, cultural differences in classroom interactions, for example, addressing professors formally or informally, then the classroom etiquette, and sometimes also it comes with feelings of isolation or homesickness, difficulty in making friends due to language barriers or cultural differences at American universities. So I just wanted to point out this, that international students might not be aware of their poor performance or poor GPA in class, sometimes because the system, the grading system might be a little bit different in different educational system. So it would be really very I did have, as an assistant dean, that is what I wanted to say. I did have several of cases of students who are coming to withdraw from the class because they were thinking that they were doing very well in class, but at the end, that was not a good performance because they were not aware of that. So that's why I put this as an example, because it would be always very good if you have international students in your classes to point out that they something about grading system, but I will talk also a little bit else later. So international students and different cultural behavior in the classroom, they may bring some unique cultural behaviors, interactions, personal hygiene habits to your classroom. And I just would like to say it is really very important not to single out the student in class or cause him or her to be embarrassed in class. If you don't feel comfortable to talk about it with the student, please contact Office of International Services, Teaching and Learning Office for advice, or they might talk to the student. Also, for students, if you want to support them, we also need to look in something that they are adjusting to different teaching and learning expectations, because many international students come from educational systems that emphasize memorization rather than discussion-based learning. And I would like to say that I was actually coming from the same educational system where memorization was more valuable than discuss-based learning. And expectations for independent research also were not a part of that. And self-directed learning, it might be also unfamiliar for our students. Some cultures emphasize respectful silence rather than active engagement in discussions, which again, I do know that very well because I'm coming from that system. Students may need encouragement to express their ideas and ask questions. Understanding the importance of office hours and advocating for themselves academically is also very, very important, and the international students and the faculty should be aware of this. So there is one of a little things when it comes as a consequence of that the international students sometimes do not participate in class because, as I already said, that it's a part sometimes of the educational system. Sometimes, of course, it's a language barrier. But professor, this is just advice. So I am sure that everyone of us is doing everything we can in our classrooms, but professors should be patient and encouraging to students. They should allow students some time before they start to speak loudly, just to allow them some time to speak. Then let your students know that contributing to the discussion is valued in the United States. They should know that. Then sometimes if you see the student would like to talk and they're hesitant to say something, you should call on them and ask them to say something. Then also explain to international students how important it is to participate in conversations, and be sure the students know when you have your office hours, so and the office is located, and let them know how important office hours are. Some of the students, if they're coming from different educational systems, had an opportunity to use internet, to use computer, to use all the technology, but many of them are coming also from the countries where they were not able to use any of the platform for learning or internet connections, or who knows. So they might have difficulty using Canvas or other classroom materials. So maybe as a professor, so this is just again a little bit of advice or support to international undergraduate students, having a handout with step-by-step instructions how to access material, lectures, lecture notes, homework, questions, assignments would be really very good to distribute at the beginning of classes. In the first weeks, it would be good to check if students have difficulties to find the needed material and ask them if they can all find that material that you need for the class. And for large classes where faculty has TAs, it might be helpful if they follow up with students about the material. So that would be really very appreciated from the students who are the first year in the international students' first year in the United States. Then also there are some very important things that we see as assistant deans in our office. It's actually submitting assignments or academic integrity and plagiarism. And it's not, I'm not mentioning this as to say that international students usually plagiarize and on purpose, but that actually the work, how they do it and how they're used to do it, it's considered plagiarism here. So For some, international students' shared work is the success of the group and the success of the individual. Students may submit similar or identical assignments or an assignment without proper citation, not realizing that is inappropriate. So that is the thing. Not knowing something, they might actually have the case of academic integrity or plagiarism. So us as instructors, we need to clear that group answers are not acceptable. For most homework assignments, and submitting a work without proper citations is recognized as plagiarism. So it would be really very good to show them examples of plagiarism, and also to mention that summarizing or paraphrasing is also not it's not appropriate. It's a part of also plagiarism. So and also every professor should make them aware of the consequences of plagiarism, and it happens, and I know it happens to students, especially international students, because some of them are not used to that. So they are having a kind of plagiarism case, but they're not aware of that. And also, I mentioned before, tell your international students when you have your office hours and where your office is, because sometimes the international students who are coming from different culture might think that office hours are only for students who do not perform well. And I need to tell you that is happening probably like 90% of the time when students are coming. So they think that this is not for them. It's for just the students who are not performing well, and they're not going to come to your office hours. So that's why you need to explain to them how to use office hours and invite them to stop by if they have any questions. So I will just now say a couple things before Adriana starts. I will say that we should get know our students. We need to try to make time to listen to our students, international students. We need to make our classroom expectations very clear for the first week of classes, so they can actually see what they need to do and what they are supposed to do. And because the international students are coming from educational system that differs greatly from those in the United States, therefore more institutional, academic, and English language support is needed for all of them. Now I am going to turn this thing to Adriana. Adriana, please let me know when you want me to change the slide. Thank you all for listening this.
And thank you, Liliana, for doing the heavy lift, especially the presentation overall. I just wanted to add faculty to the discussion so that when we open this up for questions and answers, that we also consider the impact that all of this has on faculty. We have over 20% of international faculty in U.S. Universities. This is a key part of our makeup. This is part of the innovation and teaching, institutional representation. International faculty add global perspectives. They strengthen international collaborations, and they are also probably the first point of support for international students. We really just want to say that at this particular time, there are many tensions regarding this with visa requirements, now with this additional 100,000 payment that has to happen. So, we're working very hard with departments and with faculty as we're moving into another year of recruitment. Next slide. Liana, you can, if you could. Okay, thank you very much. So we have the situation with visas, as I just mentioned, and I'll ask Richard to answer any questions regarding to the visas themselves, but just to consider that visas are a very big portion of the experience that international faculty have as they work towards promotion, as they work towards establishing themselves as career academics. With regard to research grants, the citizenship restrictions, we know that many grants are only available to U.S. citizens, and we do know that it's not necessarily the individual performance, but rather the institutional barriers that prevent an international faculty member from moving forward at times. Next slide. When we're thinking of leadership, and here I'll just share just a little bit from my own background. People know that I'm culturally Ukrainian, speak Ukrainian. Passive voice is key for how I communicate. And what I've actually had to do is take a lot of training in how to communicate in the American way. And I have many stories of what has actually happened in my career over this. But when we're thinking of who is actually speaking within a university system, we always want to consider that cultural representation and identity. Accent bias, ways of writing, active voice, a very individualized, me forward way of presenting is what dominates the U.S. System. I believe at Pitt we do have a lot more diversity than other schools actually, and I'm very grateful for that. But there is a lot of emotional labor that falls, especially on administrators, those that lead departments and faculty members in translating this type of diversity work. And I just want to acknowledge everybody who's been doing that and helping others who do that. When we're thinking of faculty experiences, we're also thinking of their families. Visa status, how that impacts the broader experience for everybody, and again, broader social barriers that influence daily academic life. And then the next slide. So what can we do moving forward? First, we can integrate faculty members in advocacy networks, really considering the type of support that an international faculty member may need, thinking about leadership programs that are tailored for international scholars, making that a forefront point from the administrative side, ensure equitable access to internal grants, awards, and committee roles. And I believe that we do that. And if there are any experiences that people have otherwise, then please bring that to our attention. Intercultural competence training for faculty and administrators, that is something I believe we could do a lot more of. And then effective retention, which requires institutional commitment. And again, this is a question that I am not able to say much from my position, but if Richard can offer more perspectives, then please do so. Liana, back to you.
Thanks, Adriana. So I just would like to share, this is kind of the last slide that I have, but I wanted to share with you what I have heard from our Pitt undergraduate international students, and I kind of compiled some of the answers. Sometimes I would ask them, sorry, sometimes I would ask them to tell me if they want to share something from their experience at the University of Pittsburgh. Sometimes they offer by themselves. So these are some things that they are actually dealing with at the University of Pittsburgh. So those are our students, what they say. So they said that they have difficulties in forming close friendship with local students. I do believe it's probably because of the language barriers and also some like cultural differences, so probably like that. So they also deal with the things, it's uncertainty around visas and future employment opportunities. And even I do get questions like, what should I do? Should I go back, or I should apply for H-1B visa or any other visa, you know? So there are many questions from the international students when it comes to the employment opportunities. So they also say that there is a language barrier that they're dealing with, but there is also a microaggression. And that microaggression, most of the time, it's kind of expressed as if they're buying food and they speak their native language. While they're doing that, somebody probably would mention that, because that is what they told me. Somebody would say, speak English, we're in the United States. So that is something of the microaggression that they reported to me. They're also having mental challenges, health challenges, because when they're coming as international students from different educational systems, they come here, it's a big system and it's a big university, so they're having problems to access material to do so. They actually deal with a lot of mental health challenges as a consequence of all the changes. Then also they have financial hardship most of the time because of the visa limitations and status limitations. And also when it comes to food accessibility, I was just a little bit surprised, to be honest, when it comes to food accessibility. I thought that we have a very good selection of food here and different cultures, but they said it's the food accessibility, it's not so great. So that is what they reported. So this is something. And there are some resources also about how to teach international students and how to do it. So this is something that we prepared for this workshop because we would like to open this discussion. I actually would like to invite Richard to say something because I did talk to Sarah Jones, the Associate Director of the Office of International Services, and I did ask the question if we had this year, because I know that those visa rules are changing and they're in the process. And I did ask Sarah to tell me if there is something about the students, if we have students that did not receive the visa, international students did not come back, were late for classes. So I would like to ask Richard to just tell us a little bit more about the changes for international students when it comes to visas and everything else.
Sure. Well, and thanks again for the opportunity, and I'm happy to, stick around and for as long as we need just to,
Thank you
chat
for
about
coming.
them. Yeah, of course. So, the past summer was a really difficult one in terms of the visa process. Without kind of getting into the nitty-gritty details, but essentially visa processing for students was on pause for about 6 weeks during the summer. The State Department and the current administration believed that it was that they needed to review protocols and security protocols, and eventually they wound up um, uh, deciding that doing a social media review of students' accounts was the best way to move forward. But in a practical sense, what happened was actually we saw more difficulty with folks not being able to get their foot into the door and schedule an appointment, as opposed to, big changes in terms of policies about denying visa applications, things like that. Essentially, it was just more of a kind of a grinding down of um, in bureaucracy. Generally, for those folks who tried and weren't able to arrive, like for new and incoming students, that was part of it. I think our continuing students have a little bit more flexibility if they're outreaching to professors and things to say, oh, geez, I'm going to be about a week late. I had scheduled everything but I think that
Yeah,
created some difficulty there. Um,
yeah.
yeah, so I can leave it there, unless if there were some particular topics that
Yeah, that is actually what I had several of students in the first week of September, and there were some people coming to ask me what to do with students who are late for classes. I mean, honestly, at that moment, I said, of course, the first thing is like go to Office of International Services and ask them what they suggest to do. But I also say, I mean, if the professors are okay, it's not their fault. It's mostly probably that bureaucracy and how to get visa because they check everything right now. So that's why they were but there were just a couple of them, right?
yeah, there weren't too many folks who were kind of in that limbo. So it was either I think our incoming students were really impacted by delays, and I'll also mention that it really depended on geographic location too, just because the State Department is um, they are making steps to trim down its workforce, which will have some negative impacts down the road in terms of visa review and staffing that way. But yeah, I think what happened is just due to the social media, the mandatory social media review that added about a week or so from what people is or from what people were used to in the past, right? And I'll say this too, the majority of our undergraduate international population who need immigration documents to study in the US. Around 80% are from China. So
Yeah.
typically those folks um, their ability to enter the U.S. is typically 5 years. That's the standard visa that they receive when they apply. So we didn't. So there were some slowdowns or some delays in processing in China. However, it seems like the State Department was a bit more uh, I'm trying to think of the right word. Um,
I see
uh,
John.
I
John,
don't want to say efficient. I'm just think like there was where I think unfortunately our students from Nigeria, for example, students from Ghana, for example, or in India as well. Unfortunately, India just had a big backlog, and some folks just weren't able to make it. So those are the big changes. I think really the biggest thing that or the change that we saw, at least, and I know that we're not involved with the admissions process. But even just the number of students that we received, of course, there's going to be, a decrease of, students who are admitted and decide that they want to come to Pitt to actually go through the steps to receive immigration documents from us. There are always some folks who will peel off, and that's fine. We just started with an overall lower number than usual. But I think there are a variety of reasons for that. But I'll just, I'll take a step back here and happy to, yeah.
Yeah, I wanted actually to ask, why do you think that we have the less number? But if you say that you just want to step back a little bit from that question, I'm perfectly fine with that. Yeah, I mean, it is kind of large drop when you
Yeah,
look at the numbers.
yeah. I think uh it's hard to say just because, typically when I'm speaking with students, I know politics is a very sensitive subject that I wouldn't necessarily. My thought is that it has to do with just news and the administration, and I think too, just more of the we're adding a bit more uncertainty into a system that has a whole bunch of uncertainty packed into it already, right? Where I know earlier in the presentation, I thought this was great, just the uncertainty about employment, right?
Yeah.
How will I not and I think just the mechanics of it, of just how do I, like, what is my step, like, is there a kind of a runway for me to, I've enjoyed my time here, I've been, I built up a lot of great skills, just that uncertainty of, is there a smooth runway? Unfortunately, there is not. And I'll get to that in just a moment. And I think
Yeah, there is a question. Yeah.
yeah, I'll address
Yeah.
that. So, right.
Yeah.
So, in terms of and feel free to kind of add to the question, but just in terms of our advising folks in terms of kind of their next steps after graduation, if we're just thinking about the student side. So I'll give a brief overview that all students can apply for 12 months of work authorization after graduation. That's called optional practical training. That is essentially the bridge that our F1 students could try to gain some experience, and then at that point they start thinking about different types of employment-based visas. So I think in terms of and I'm happy to elaborate a little bit more, but in terms of the question, the J1 visa category could be an option after those 12 months, and there's an additional STEM OPT extension for an additional 24 months after the 12, so 36 total months. The bad joke that I typically use is that once upon a time, I was a Spanish and Latin American studies major. I would not qualify for the STEM OPT extension, but my older brother was a civil engineer. He would qualify for this additional STEM extension. So we encourage everyone who's interested in applying, just that gives them some additional leeway to think about their next options. But when we come to that kind of point, In terms of the J1 visa, that's typically, I would say that that's more on the academic side of things. Now, the benefit, if folks are already here in the United States, the $100,000 H-1B fee may not apply to them because that only applies to folks who are outside of the United States. So there is a bit of an advantage of staying in the United States, or at least kind of continuing on this path. Like, for example, let's say if we had a PhD student who received 12 months of optional practical training, maybe they had a teaching position. H-1B is still in play because they would just be changing status from within the United States. They would not be subject to the $100,000. But in that case where, let's say if an individual is perhaps subject to that $100,000 fee, yes, what we tell folks or departments would be have that conversation with us just so that we can explore different options, right? Maybe a J could be a fit, or maybe the O visa, which is more of like it's a bit more lengthy. It's more of kind of someone of extraordinary ability, and we can try to kind of work through that if that's helpful.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you, Richard. Is there any other question about this? I also would like to ask Richard about, since I noticed that we have some international faculty here, maybe just to give us some update if there are any changes for the international faculty that are now at the University of Pittsburgh.
Okay, yeah, great question. So, no, I think just the clarity about the $100,000 fee was really helpful. Well, I should say yes. So the clarity about kind of who has to pay the fee, really when it was announced that the government didn't have like a system to collect that fee, right? So, so at least there is some clarity. Just we had some folks who were outside of the United States when this was announced, and just you could imagine how those folks felt of just, oh, geez, I'm outside of the U.S. Am I subject to the fee?
Yeah.
I think that was the biggest update. I know because of that, folks are welcome to contact their immigration specialist on our employment team. I work on our student-facing side, so but just in general, so we have updated, and I can just put a link in. I know there's a lot to go through. There's been a lot of news. We have a news section, but that's become rather. We've added a lot to it in the past 11 months. So, but I'm happy to share that along. But in terms of other visa categories, aside from the H-1B, no.
No, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, good. That's really very good. Thank you so much, Richard. Now you can maybe a little bit rest, but I also would like to invite you all to share some experience if you would like to share with us about teaching international students in your classes, what you have noticed with your international students, what is happening. If you would like to add something to those little things that I had there about their experience at Pitt, I really would like to ask you to share something with us, or also being an international student.
John's hand is up.
Yeah, John, yeah, sorry, I didn't see. Thank you.
No, they totally fine, Liliana. And you know, one of the things that I struggle with, and this is actually not a student I have this semester, but an issue that one of my colleagues was dealing with, an undergraduate student from, in this case, from China. And I had reached out to not Richard, a colleague at OIS, about, you know, the whole conceptual and ethical framework of a word that we use generally in relation to disability services, but is not unreasonable in the context of international students, which is accommodation, and how we maintain equity and fairness for all of our students while still trying to ensure both explanatory clarity, to your point, Liliana, right? Making sure everybody is clear, but also recognizing that linguistic disadvantages and other things are real. And so one of the things I've wrestled with my entire career really has been, is it reasonable to offer accommodations to international students? Especially in my own discipline is very writing heavy, very reading heavy, in a way that doesn't disadvantage or provide an inequitable situation for all of our students, if that makes sense.
Oh, thank you so much. That is an excellent point. Being an international student, I need to tell you that we are scared to speak, especially if you have a group of all of them are native speakers of English. And sometimes you're just, you feel a little bit like threatened. What if I say something wrong? You do need several years to, cross that first and beginning fear of that. And after that, when you speak, you say, okay, then I speak the way how I speak. Yeah, I am really supporting the thing that you mentioned, that the international student should get an accommodation, especially for classes when it comes with a lot of heavy writing, because as a university, we think if they pass the TOEFL test, they're fine with everything. They're not. The TOEFL test, I need to tell you from my experience, it's just a test. And when you hear people speaking with all those reductions, when they say gonna, shoulda, did, you are in shock. You have no idea what people are talking about. So that would be really something. I don't know what Adriana says about that, about the accommodation for international students when it comes to, let's say, writing or doing something for the academic work. Adriana, would you like to say something about that?
Oh, other than, I'm fully in support of doing everything
Yeah.
that we can to help students move through, these very complicated systems. And I leave it to the faculty to bring it to our attention if there's specific things that we feel that aren't being covered by the policies that are in existence.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks, Adriana. We have first Amani, then we have Gregory after that. Amani, it's your turn.
Thank you, Liliana. Thank you, Adriana, for this. And what I wanted to add to this is I have one comment about international students and one about faculty, and a suggestion that might work for both. So international students, I think sometimes it's not just a linguistic barrier. Sometimes they don't understand how the system works here.
Yeah.
Like they don't even know what Canvas is. They don't even know it's not enough to attend a workshop and tell students sometimes this is how we post things. You need to do discussion posts. You need to do this. Sometimes they need a lot more than this. The system is so different from what they're used to. And I had international students who would sometimes in their written essays, they would copy paste, including links, not thinking that this is plagiarism. Like they don't understand that this is something that is not acceptable here. And for the international faculty, I have heard stories about international faculty suffering from some microaggressions, and especially if they are in the tenure track, they are so worried about complaining about things because this might affect their tenure. So they keep quiet about it. And if they're waiting for a contract to be renewed, they're so worried that people are going to dislike them because they have complaints. And it feels so stressful. And
Especially for faculty when their contract is tied to the status in the United States for H-1B visa or something.
Exactly. Yeah. And one thing that I feel might really work both for students and for faculty, and I have had like a very positive experience last week of this, is the mentorship program that some centers, some departments are working on. So when a new faculty member, a new grad student, or even an undergrad has a mentor, someone that has been through the same experience and would sort of take them step by step through what they, we've been through this too. We understand what you're going through. I think it will get better. Or when you are in this country, this should be your focus. You don't have to be always agreeable and always obliging because you're worried that they are not going to like you. Hearing like tips from people who have been through the same experience, I think works really well with both students and faculty, international students and international faculty.
Thank you, Amani. That is really very helpful. And I do believe I'm saying this because Richard is here and we have a new class that is taught, one credit course that is taught about the culture in the United States and the classroom. I think that you should add one module actually for international students, how to use Canvas, how to use the classroom material, how to access this, how to talk to a professor. Just maybe you can just add a module on that so they can be familiar with the system that we are using in the United States. And that would be really very helpful. And by the way, in the chat, if you are interested in H-1B visa and links, Richard sent all the links for the immigration stuff there. So. And now I would like to ask, it's Gregory Mizera, right?
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah, so
Hey,
please.
thank you, Liliana, and thank you, Adriana,
Thanks.
for organizing this event. I want to talk a little bit about accommodation because it's often presented in terms of the instructor accommodating the international students. I teach ESL a lot, and one of the things a lot of students tell me is that they really worry about group work, that is being
Oh, yeah.
assigned to group work in class, because they're all often assigned, they're the only non-native English speaker in a group. They feel that they're the weak link, and they also feel some resentment from some of their classmates who think, well, we're going to have to carry this person. She can't do much. So maybe encouraging some of our fellow students to accommodate the international students would be helpful too. And maybe that could involve giving them a role that they know they're competent in the group, assigning roles to each person in the group instead of letting just students figure it out for themselves, so that that new student, especially in his or her first semester, might have something that they feel confident they can do and they don't feel they're bringing down the whole group. That's my comment.
Well, thank you so much, Gregory. This is so really helpful for this, coming from someone who is teaching English as a second language. That's amazing. Thank you so much. Yeah, I don't even want to talk about the group work and my experience through that, because it's something that you actually mentioned right now. And I am still a little bit kind of resilient toward the group work when we need to do, and especially those like group works when it comes to workshop and making like situation like honestly, I'm not creative at all when it comes to that. I'm not used to that. So, and I also, when it comes to that, if you're not creative and you feel that you don't know how to do something, then you also don't want to participate in that. So I do understand that, how that comes. Do we have more questions now or comments? Please go ahead if you would like to say something. I see something in
Seth has his hand up.
oh yeah, I don't see everyone, so that's why I don't see. Yeah, okay.
Well,
I don't see Adriana who
can I
has
go
the
ahead?
Seth O'Keefe.
Yes, of course, please go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to say that
Oh yes.
well, I think one of the things that we faculty can do is to what I call targeted interventions. I teach classes that I have students, international students come in, from different parts of the world. And it helps me that as someone who is originally African, I studied in Europe and I studied in Japan. I speak multiple languages and stuff like that. And so we have a lot of class discussions in most of the courses that I teach. And sometimes I would notice that some of the students wouldn't speak at all. And which
Yeah.
of course concerns some of the issues we've discussed now, a certain feeling of not very confident in expressing yourself, things like that. And so usually what I would do is that after the class, I would usually go to the student and ask, how you doing? How are your other classes going? Do you understand, most of the stuff we're discussing in class? Do you have any challenges, any difficulties? And I've had students come to me and say that I have a lot to say, but I don't feel confident saying it. And I think that helps me
to kind of work to the students, I mean, with the students through that, and let them understand that you might have certain language barrier, but the essence of communication is to be understood. You may not have the same accent as them,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
if you have an idea and you can speak for someone to understand you, you should be able to voice out and be able to say it. And I also had a student last year. I teach 2 courses in a planning program. I met a student in the, I think that was the first year the student was in the university. So he was very quiet and appeared very timid during class discussions. And we teach about planning, and students have to learn to speak out because planning requires you to communicate to people. And then she was very shy, wouldn't talk much, and all that. And so during the midterm, I had the chance to kind of talk to her. We did community engagement stuff, and I tried as much as possible to make her part of some of the programs we have in the the department that was public facing. So she had this experience talking to people, engaging people, build her confidence and stuff like that. And she's in my class this semester in another course, and she's all over the place, very confident, always speaking, expressing her opinion. And she's not speaking not necessarily because she has to speak, but she has something to share which really enriches the discussion in class. So I think, for us as faculty, especially those of us with international backgrounds, we can
Yeah.
reach out to students that we feel might be having certain challenges and help them probably share our own journeys or help them to understand that sometimes it's like this, but you can get better. And probably that might be very helpful to them as well.
Thank you so much for sharing your experience about that. It's always very, very helpful to hear from other instructors how they deal with those situations in class. And yeah, Amani, yeah, that's exactly what mentoring is about. I just wanted to add one little thing that I missed to say, and it's actually not one little thing. It's a huge thing because I meet a lot of students, international students in the assistant dean's office who do not understand how important is the deadline that is set up by the syllabus. They even think if you say like Friday, 5 p.m., okay, I can submit it at 5, at 6 a.m. or 7 a.m. That's the most important thing that international students should know, that the deadline is a strict deadline. So that is one of the things that I noticed while working in the assistant dean's office. Do I see more hands? I'm sorry, because I need to go to this, but yeah, I don't see more. So, but if you really would like to talk, just unmute and talk. Yeah, Richard, you would like to talk. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I don't mean to monopolize the conversation. This has been great. One thing I'll mention too, and I think that we kind of mentioned it. I think this is particularly for recently arrived students who have been in the U.S. maybe for their first time or first educational experience in the U.S. is that yes, like there are tons of, and I think the presentation did a great job of laying that out. There's also the component too, where kind of outside of the classroom, they may be in an environment that's completely different than what they are used to, right? So some folks, like I don't know, I know many. I'm sure that many folks here have had kind of richer, cultural experiences than me. But I just remember when I participated in a study abroad thing, there was just like I'm trying to untangle kind of what my host family mom said to me at breakfast of like, okay, yeah, I guess I'm going to mass this week and for the rest of my experience here. And then just kind of thinking like, oh, okay, I have to make sure what's going on in class, and oh geez, I'm not doing as well as I was in class. Like I'm messing up at home, I'm messing up here at school. So like sometimes those experiences, like balancing all of that can be a challenge
Yeah,
too.
balancing
Yeah.
all of that. Yeah. What Seth also said about being the student, I like that when the student doesn't talk and then you ask them how they're doing. I mean, we are supposed to ask our students how they're doing or something. I know that some of us are dealing with big, huge classes, but that is always like a challenge to that. Okay. So I do see a comment probably. Yeah, So, okay, accommodating to weather is yeah, a challenge in Pittsburgh. Yeah, so I would like to ask if there are more comments or questions. If we don't have more comments or questions, I think that we can end our session. What do you say, Adriana?
Yes, I think we've really covered a lot. This is recorded. We'll be circulating the video. So if there's any more that we would like to continue with this, then as we go through the year.
Yeah. So I would like to thank you all for coming. This is we are all very busy. I do understand that, but thank you so much for coming. Thank you for all your questions and comments. And let's just keep working and trying to improve everything for our international students. Thank you all. Thank you, Amani. Thank you, everyone. And have a great day. Have a great week before Thanksgiving.